We started the recording, Tom?
Yes, we're recording now. Thanks.
Thank you. Hey, welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Transformative Vertical Flight Working Group Public Service Meeting number 95. Today is Thursday, February 20th, 2025. With great pleasure, we have an excellent topic and speakers with us today. We're going to be talking about GoAERO. The aero part is Aero Emergency Response Operations. We have competition stage 1 winners selected, and so with Gwen and Sky Sartorius, we are going to dive into it in much more detail. So that was exciting to have you guys. And with a quick note on the some of the forthcoming meetings, just draw to some of the members' attention. In April 2nd and 3rd, we have this H2 Aero Symposium in Long Beach, California. Also, in March 10th to 13th in Dallas, there's a Verticom. That's a new name for the organization and for the conference. Should be a significant expansion on the activities. Will be interesting. And we have Sun and Fun coming up in April 1st to 6th. That would be what I call the mini Oshkosh, perhaps, or Oshkosh of the South, really. That should be the way to say it. It will be interesting. I plan to be there and hopefully see some of you guys there. And there's a FDIC International, which is the Fire Department Instructors Conference, relate to some of the activities we're talking about, including today's topic. And that would be in April. There's a SAE conference in May, 6th to 8th in Vancouver. Anybody like to visit the beautiful city of Vancouver? That would be opportunity. Aerotech has always have a lot of interesting topic and papers. And definitely not least is the Forum 81, an important and very significant conference that will be taking place in May 20th to 22nd in Virginia Beach. So hope to see some of you there. So anyway, that's some of the meetings coming up. Hope to anyone in our community, some of those meetings are very meaningful and useful and valuable in my experience. Now, with that, I'm going to come back to introduce our speaker. Gwen Leiter is the CEO and founder of GoAERO, supported by Boeing, NASA, RTX, Honeywell, and a variety of aerospace and public safety partners. GoAERO is catalyzing the creation of emergency response flyers, safe, autonomy-enabled aircraft that rescue people and perform critical response mission in the face of natural disasters. We sure know that that's very much needed. I'm so happy that Gwen and team are pushing this forward in a big way. And of course, that also including medical emergency, climate change, and humanitarian crisis. Now, since 2017, Gwen has also served as CEO of GoFly, as many of you remember that one, where she has led a network of over 3,600 innovators from 103 countries, creating a multitude of personal flying devices, including jetpacks, flying motorcycle, and human-carrying drones. Also, we have here today with us is Dr. Sky Sartorius. He is an aerospace professional with a diverse background across industry sectors. He has worked and consulted at several startups and small companies, along with a recent term at Boeing's Advanced Concept Division. With a passion for pursuing the boundaries or pushing the boundaries of aerospace technology, his experience spanned unconventional airplanes, rotorcraft, VTOLs, uncrewed and autonomous systems, electrified propulsion, sustainable airlines, and more. He enjoyed working across the entire product lifecycle, from the initial concept and requirements definition through multidisciplinary design, optimization, prototyping, testing, and manufacturing. He is the technical lead for GoAERO and served as the same role for the GoFly Prize in the past. So please, Gwen and Sky, so happy that you guys can come talk to us and share the latest progress advancement of the program. And the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Johnny. Thank you so much for inviting us. Sky, if you can load up the slides, that would be great.
If I can disengage my presentation part, maybe you can.
Yes.
Great. And then I think probably best to start with the video, Sky. I'm not sure if you all had the opportunity to see our 1-minute video where we announced the stage 1 winners. But if you did not,
you're still sharing, so I can't share.
No, I'm trying to, if I just turn off that page, would that work?
Yep.
Hey, brute force solution.
So this video is
it.
just 1 minute. So whether you've seen it before or not, it's it is a quick summary. And Sky will get this going. Thank you.
Innovators. Disaster strikes. Traffic stalls. When all seems lost. Here's to the best minds. The ones who harness new tech to build next-gen rescue and response aircraft with autonomy, advanced propulsion, and cutting-edge computing. Us all, together we launched a competition, a race to bring emergency response aircraft to life. With epic partners, global reach, and real money online, picking winners from around the world. Teams with a mission to save lives. Teams that think bigger, bolder, and completely out of the box. Now the clock sets again, open to new teams to join. It's a competition with every stake, where every second counts. Ready, set, go, Aero.
Well, if you heard what I heard, it didn't sound that fantastic, but there's great music. It's coordinated with the video and all of that. So, perhaps we can put up a link and you can watch it later should you wish. But as you all know, I believe GoAERO is this 3-year competition with right now about $2.5 million in prizes. We are raising more money for additional prizes, and we are really looking to bring to life these safe, roadable, trailerable, robust, autonomy-enabled aircraft that bring a first responder to someone in need, rescue someone who needs help, bring in needed goods or supplies or services to an area, and whether that is in wildfires or flooding or other natural disasters or everyday medical emergencies or humanitarian crises, we have asked the world to join us in creating these emergency response aircraft. So we last week actually announced or I guess a week and a half ago, announced our stage 1 winners. And we had 11 winners from the GoAERO stage 1 prizes. And then in conjunction with and so what you see here are, what do we have here? We have a mix of all the winners right here. And, oh no, these are the stage 1 winners. Yes, so these are stage 1 winners that you see here. And we'll talk about them a little bit later on. And then along with NASA, we awarded U.S. University Innovation Prizes, and there were 14 universities that received those prizes. And so you are seeing publicly releasable graphics for those 14 universities as well here. So we are very excited about both the quality of the submissions and the diversity of the submissions. For I believe almost everyone here has known about GoAERO and our programming, but really success for us is that at the end of the competition, there are a multitude of a variety of different types of aircraft that then can be iterated upon and deployed in the real world so that we really are saving lives. We have this mission of saving lives, but we are also just harnessing the best minds and really focusing on aviation for public good. And it is this public good mission and message which really drives almost everything that we do. I don't need to really give you the statistics. We all know from the news what we see every day in terms of natural disasters. We also know that in the US alone, there are over 5 million people who live in ambulance deserts. That means on a perfect day when the sun is shining, it still takes 20 minutes or more for an ambulance to get to those people who live in ambulance deserts. Clearly, whether one is living in urban environments or in remote environments all around the globe, we should be using the best of aviation to actually help. And so that's really what this is all about. The competition is divided into 3 different stages. Stage 1 is the paper stage, and we just announced that. Stage 2 is the prototype stage, and we are going into the prototype stage right now. And prototypes can be full scale or subscale. And then everything culminates in the first quarter of 2027. I'm really switching around. Thanks, Guy. Everything culminates in the first quarter of 2027, where we have a fly-off and all the teams gather to run through, or I should say fly through, our 3 different fly-off missions of adversity, maneuverability, and productivity. We have prizes in each of those areas. We have an autonomy prize, we have an RTX disruptor prize, and then of course we have the $1 million grand prize. Now, we could not do this alone. GoAERO is supported by so many different essential, phenomenal partners. We have our corporate partners, and obviously we have NASA as well, Boeing, RTX, Honeywell, and NASA. So too, we have organizations all around the world who help to support all of our activities. And we have a lot of our judges from organizations. These organizations helped us, in many cases, write our technical rules and guidelines. They help us get out the word to new teams and mentor old teams. In addition to all of this, we also have in-kind partners, and our in-kind partners provide software, services, product directly to our GoAERO teams, and they are either free or they're deeply discounted. And so these are some of our in-kind partners that work directly with our teams to help them. In addition to the competition, yes, we have teams in 85 different countries right now, which really resonates. It means that there are people around the globe who are truly interested in using aviation as public good, and they have joined us here. So we are so pleased about the robust nature of the competition. And then next slide, please, Sky. So in addition to the competition part and the pricing, we also see ourselves as an educational platform, as a give back. And so we have phenomenal luminaries in aerospace, in business, speak to all of our teams through webinars, similar to this actually. And we have several of them each month. These are a few of our past webinars over the past 6 months or so. And in addition to that, the people that you see here provide very short videos for our teams as well. So we are so very lucky to have truly exceptional minds join us in this endeavor. And all of our resources are really geared towards helping the teams, knocking down hurdles for them so that they can focus on building and on safety and on success. So I think without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Sky, unless there are other slides for me that I did not see yet. No, I think we are good. Sky, all you.
Great. Yeah, well, Gwen, good overview and introduction. So Gwen already talked about how this is kind of a 3-stage competition. And stage 1 it's behind us now, but I think that'll be one of the interesting things that we get to talk about in this meeting today is what kind of submissions we had. We don't have materials necessarily prepared on our process that went into like the whole judging and selection process, but we can go into that in Q&A for sure. And then looking forward, stage 1 was basically a package that they had to submit that had to explain what their technical approach is, also what their programmatic approach is, like what's their plan, what's their schedule, what's their budget, do they have enough money to like make this plan happen? And those stage 1 submissions were assessed on, could you tell what they were talking about? Like, was it clear what they had? What were their decisions justified? Was their expected performance substantiated? Those sorts of things. And then there were also a separate chunk of points based on the plausibility of that. Do they have a plan? Is the plan plausible? Is it feasible that they're going to make it all the way to the Q1 flyoff, a Q1 2027 flyoff? So that was the digital submission, but it's all about the digital submission, and also stage 2 is very much focused on points for technical development and getting the team being able to make it to the flyoff and being able to be competitive at the flyoff. So I want to go through, for those who aren't familiar, really quickly what the flyoff was about. It's about boiling down all these public good missions and figuring out what are the skills and capabilities and attributes that we want to be able to test for. What can you test for in a way that's measurable, where teams can actually compete against each other, right? Where you can say, okay, this team actually did better than this other team. And then what also can work for this format of gathering teams together in one place for only a few days and doing what is essentially an air sport competition for that weekend. So it's broken down into 3 missions that we'll ask them to do throughout the period of the competition, in any order, and they're decoupled. And in fact, each mission by itself, the top performer in that mission will get a $150,000 prize by itself. But the first of these is a productivity mission, and it's a little bit of a 2-parter. The systems need to be able to fit entirely on some sort of highway legal configuration. Part of that is so that they can show up at the competition and making the logistics of the weekend a little bit more straightforward. And also there are several applications, like end-use applications, where this is a valuable capability. Not all of them, admittedly, but for enough of them, and that for this competition, it made sense to have that be kind of a hard requirement. And so in this productivity mission, the first part of it is driving with your vehicle not necessarily being highway legal in terms of like tie down and securing, but still within that highway legal like width and height limits, on a truck or a trailer, showing up to the course and deploying the vehicle from that configuration to get it ready to fly. So they have a certain period of time to get it ready to fly, and then they have to start flying. And the flying portion is about ferrying payload from A to B. For this particular mission, A and B are co-located, so we're simulating that by an out and back rather than actually setting up an A, B, and that lets us kind of reuse the payloads and things like this. Speaking of payloads, I should mention that the primary payload for these is they're single occupant vehicles. The primary payload is a 125-pound mannequin. So none of the vehicles flying at the competition will have any humans on board. And then for the productivity mission, they can take additional payloads, some 40-pound sandbags or lengths of rebar, things like that, in order to get their total amount of payload moved through the 90-minute window that they have, because that's what their score is based on. And then the score is normalized by dividing by the total system weight. So the total amount of, this excludes the ground station, but the whole vehicle and all the spare parts, spare fuel, extra batteries, and support equipment that they need in order to complete this mission. In addition to that, the additional personnel that they use for for unloading and loading payloads also counts towards that system weight. And then the next mission is an adversity mission. And the adversity mission is just a course where there are several landing zones. There are half a dozen of them. And you start at one that is just a plain rectangular hard flat surface, nothing challenging there. You have to go and visit each one of these in any order the team likes. And in between them, they have to overfly a marker just to make the distances between them, just to remove the traveling salesman problem from the challenge. And then the different operation zones are there, and they have to touch down on each one and stay there for 2 minutes. So there's a sandy one, so just like loose, dry sand. And this, in reality, is going to be whatever sand we can source locally. But if it's a little bit dusty and can create lower visibility conditions, that's great. And in fact, we've given ourselves the option in the rules to even add like smoke elements to that zone. There's a sloped surface, so they need to be able to land on a 12-degree slope or touch down on it and hover. There's a knee-deep standing water with simulated moderate rainfall zone. And then there's another one where we're going to have wind machines pointing at different angles and different heights to try to create unsteady, irregular, powerful wind currents around there. And then finally, there's one with unsurveyed obstacles where the teams are not able to see where these obstacles are from where their ground station is allowed to be set up. And those obstacles are movable. So they're not going to know until they're within 100 feet of it, where exactly within that field is a safe, clear landing zone. And that one is simply on time, whichever team can complete that first. And then finally, there's a maneuvering mission. So there's basically an obstacle course, a slalom course. There's a diagram of that at the right. The total scale of that is about a football field. And so they just have to have run it in both directions, and they have to in each direction with and without that mannequin payload on board. So they get to run it empty or full of payload. So it's and these obstacles are going around pylons, going under pylons with a ceiling, and also obstacle 3 is like a wall that they have the choice to go over or around. And then the spot landing zone at one terminus is only an 8-foot by 8-foot square, and you have to enter it through a 28-foot wide gate. So that actually puts a pretty explicit limit on the size of the vehicles. Other than that, there are no explicit penalties for bringing to the competition an aircraft that is, say, designed for 2 occupants or something like that. And then the spot, we're also going to see what we can do to degrade GNSS signals specifically for that zone. Oh yeah, so this is, if you were at TVF recently, you saw me talk about this. Now that we have shown what the winners and what the NASA awardees look like, it's a little bit easier to talk about this, but this is still talking about the variety of different configurations that were submitted for the entire 70+ submissions that we had in stage 1. So as expected, we got a lot of different teams emphasizing different strategies, different configurations, emphasizing their strengths in different ways. I have the VTOL wheel up here to illustrate how many different things were tried in the 20th century compared to how many saw kind of a major commercial success. And so not that many configurations made it. And so we really see that as a nice feature of this competition, is that it's prompting people to try a lot of different things and kind of letting the reality of physics determine, okay, which things are most viable. And as we all know, like, not everything is always the best thing wins, because there are other, market forces and luck and financials and things like that to get in the way. But generally, from a technology point of view, trying a lot of things is helpful. And so an exercise that I worked with Dan Newman on was taking the VTOL wheel and its new evolution. If you've been reading the Vertiflight articles about how that wheel has evolved, or a new taxonomy that not myself, but others have been developing, and they've been writing Vertiflight articles about it, is they took this and turned it into a color wheel where you'll have it just breaks down which propulsors are pointed in which directions and which types of propulsors those are. And then you turn that into a triangle so that you can kind of cross-reference those for configurations that combine them. So some examples here are, just something that has a rotor for primary lift. That'd be like a helicopter. Lift cruise might be like a tilt rotor. And then cruise thrust only would be, I put a Sikorsky airplane up here. This is kind of outside the scope of the VTOL taxonomy. However, we did have some entries that were lighter than air or super STOL, which are viable for this competition. So those are included there. And then so you have other things that combine those. And so this is kind of the full taxonomy map here. And we have bubbles on this chart that correspond to how many different entries of this 70 plus in stage 1 we had. So you can see there's kind of a bigger bubble around the multi-copters and the helicopters. That's kind of expected, especially since we have a relatively short timeline for this competition. It's also kind of a default answer for those who didn't necessarily do a detailed trade study on which type of configuration they wanted. But that's kind of the extent of these are the that's kind of like what I can give you in terms of the configurations that were submitted for stage 1. And then what I can do is I can go back for kind of our discussion. I can go back to the chart we had at the very beginning that just showed a bunch of those configurations, particularly the winners. Sorry, this doesn't scroll too quickly. There we go. This one. And so that's kind of all I wanted to talk about. All I had materials for. And in terms of the judging and down select, if we wanted to get that into Q&A, I kind of touched on what the criteria are. The rubric, the judging rubric was published for teams and for judges. And I mean, as well as the submission page, if you guys really wanted to go deep into the weeds of what they were asked to submit, things like that. But maybe we'll just leave this up here for the Q&A portion of the meeting today.
Great, great, thank you. I think everybody can take a minute, take a look at those different design and from different team. I see some team from San Jose, Texas A&M, UK. There's a different team with different idea how things can best suited for the mission. So that's kind of, to me, just by looking at this, the 11th winning configuration, that was interesting by itself.
So one more thing to discuss with everybody is that in our next 2 stages of stage 2 prototype and stage 3 full scale, there are a number of different ways that you all can collaborate with us should you desire to do so. We are still accepting new teams. Our stages are not gates. As you very well know, very often in engineering, it's failure after failure after failure after failure, which leads to success. We allow all of our teams to continue on, and we allow new teams to join us as well. So you do not have to, one did not have to participate in stage 1 in order to join us now in stage 2. So that's one thing. So if you all want to be a team, or if you know of anyone who is interested in forming a team or joining one of our existing teams, certainly reach out, let us know. You can find all of the information you need on the slide that you see here. So too, GoAERO and our teams need help. If you would like to be a mentor, you can go to the website, which is listed, and the QR code will take you there. And there's a tab that says be a mentor, and you can sign up to be a mentor there. The way the mentorship works is teams ask us for mentors in specific areas, and we find a specialist from our roster of mentors with expertise in that area and pair everyone together. So that's how that works. So too, our teams always need what we call in-kind sponsors, right? We have this whole in-kind sponsor program. If either your companies or if you all think of any companies that you think would be helpful to our teams, GoAERO will then contact that company and work out an agreement with that company such that our teams are able to utilize their products or services at either free or a discounted discounted way. So look, it takes a village to build this whole thing, and to do that, if you'd like to work with us on the fly-off, that's a possibility. If you potentially like to be a judge in stage 2, that's a possibility. So many different ways of joining us and what we are doing. So happy to have you. And if there are questions, happy to take any questions. And if I see David Gonzalez says he has a 1,500-pound thrust prototype. Excellent. We may adapt to join in the future. Certainly, we welcome you to do so. There's over $2 million, actually over, I think just about $2 million in prizes left to be won over the next 2 stages, and we are actively trying to bring on additional prizes. All the information on forming a team or contacting us can be found on the slide that you are looking at, and the website and the info@goaeroprize.com link or email address as well. Johnny, happy to answer any question. I don't know if you have any questions, Johnny. You know all about what we're doing, but happy to answer any questions you may have or anyone else. And as I know, Sky is as well.
Hey, I'm Damian. I'd like to know how difficult is it to apply for the second stage. I tried to apply for the first stage, and it was so much paperwork that I missed a couple of hours on the last day of submitting.
Okay. It is relatively simple, and stage 1 was really simple. So stage 1 was just checking things, checking the documents and signing the documents, and all of that was done online. Stage 2 is so I'm unsure as to why there was difficulty with that, but
I believe then I went to wrong forms. Maybe it was for the stage 3 or something, whatever.
Okay. I'm not sure. Only stage 1. I don't know. And sorry you had those problems, but I'm not sure why, because there's one link, so it would just go to a document that you would have signed. But regardless, that's over and done with. For stage 2, you can find all of the information and all of the documents by going to this QR code. There is the master team agreement. There is a media rights agreement. Teams keep all of their own intellectual property, except in the media rights agreement. That is where we say we have the right to publicize. You'll provide us with publicly releasable graphics so that we can promote the team and promote the competition. So that's where media is. Otherwise, all intellectual property is kept by teams. So as I said, media rights agreement, master team agreement, and then in the building stages, teams must have insurance. So we have worked with Global Aerospace, which is the largest aerospace insurance company in the entire world, and they have very kindly set up a pool of insurance for all of our GoAERO teams. It is incredibly discounted. Teams must have insurance in order to participate in the building stages in stage 2 and stage 3 of the GoAERO Prize. So one does not need to procure their insurance from Global Aerospace, but it is most likely the least cost insurance that meets all of the requirements in the master team agreement. So it's really those 3 parts: master team agreement, media rights agreement, and insurance. And all the information can be found on our websites.
Thank you.
Of course. And if you have problems, there's also our email, the info@GoAEROPrize.com. You can always contact us.
But I think that like it is a process with multiple steps, so it's just important to get it started early.
Mm.
Because then if you run into a roadblock, it's kind of easier to know where you are in the process and help you get over it.
And a question on how much is the insurance cost per team from Global Aerospace? I don't have that exact. I want to say it's either $1,500 or $3,000, but it's for several millions of dollars in insurance, and there is no way that any insurance is going to come close. They are really doing our GoAERO teams a huge favor, but once again, you do not need to use them at all. That is entirely up to you. At GoAERO, we believe, as I said previously, it's our job to try to help knock down the hurdles in front of teams so that they can focus on building. And so, for example, one of the other benefits that we have is help in one-on-one help with our GoAERO experts who have worked for about 30 years with the FAA previously, helping guide teams through the FAA process in order to be able to fly at the fly off and all of that. So those are the kinds of things that we help our teams with as they are in both stage 2 and in stage 3 on their way to the fly off.
And I will confirm it is 1,500, Gwen.
Thank
and
you.
high. Yep.
Thank you, Kyle. See, I
No
knew
problem.
it was.
Hey,
Good.
Kay, can you put up the slide that's showing the university award by the NASA?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have to admit that I have not seen that page before. That's interesting.
And
Some
these
of
ones that are
the
pale also got a stage 1 award. They were on the previous slide.
yeah, okay. So they are not exclusive to each other. They can actually award a both. That's interesting. Good deal.
And I had a question about the insurance kind of further on. Is that $1,500 per year, or is that $1,500 over the course of the competition? And does that insurance also cover, if we're testing this, we're testing, a system, flying on our own, is it also covered under that?
I believe it also covers that. However, I mentioned before that we have expert lectures several times a month. One of our expert lectures, and you can find it also on the website at the QR code and at the website that we gave, and under expert lectures. One of the expert lectures that was provided last month was done by the Global Aerospace team, where they go into the ins and outs of the pool of insurance that they offer all of our teams. So they are the best, or that is the best way to learn about all of the benefits offered. And on our website as well is the contact information in the benefits section, right? So there's an expert lecture section where you can look at all the expert, or tab, I should say. There's also a benefits tab where you can see all the different benefits offered to our teams for official stage 2 teams. When you go into the benefits tab under Global Aerospace, you will be able to see a contact email for them as well. So you can ask them specifically the ins and outs of what they are offering.
Okay, awesome.
Ta-da.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
look
That's
at
very helpful.
Kyle. Look at Kyle just throwing things on the chat. That's right. GoAERO team
Nah,
at global-aero.com.
And as far as the IP rights, you said, the IP rights all stay with the teams. Are there any kind of rights conveyed to the sponsors other than just
Nope.
Okay, great.
No, well, let me be clear. The media rights agreement gives GoAERO the opportunity to publicize the competition through all the different media and use the like the video that you saw photos of teams and all of that, right? So the media rights agreement also says that our sponsors have the right to use the media that we GoAERO generates and that you provide to us as well. So I know you're not really talking about that when you're speaking about IP. I just want to be very specific. And all of these terms are called out in the media rights agreement. But if you are talking specifically about the technical IP, teams keep all of that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Yep. Yeah. As you will see, we try to be incredibly transparent, and so you can find all information on the website.
Quick question. What ratio of the team, roughly speaking, are from universities around the world?
So about I want to
More than
say
half?
about a 35, yeah, about 30. I'm trying to do math. Like probably around 35%. Yeah, about a third of them are university, were university-based teams in stage 1. And obviously that will change for stage 2,
Right.
because everything changes in each stage, right? But yes, that's how it was. It was very interesting. Universities, we had really great, or I should say, we had great university participation, and the universities had very good support as well. For example, at Carnegie Mellon University, they established a class the fall semester last year that was solely on GoAERO, and they had about 25 different grad students, and their final paper was their GoAERO submission. So, that's just one instance. We had universities who were doing it as purely a student activity, extracurricular activity. We had universities who were working out of labs. We, all the different ways that people can collaborate within either a university setting or without is what you will find at GoAERO. Not only are their submissions and their flyers completely different, but also how they work and how they come together, and whether they're universities or startups or established companies or individuals, we had all types of teams participating. And so that was something that was certainly gratifying to us as well.
Yeah, you could extrapolate rough math from this. If you look at the number of winners, there are some universities on here who aren't US universities.
Mm-hmm.
And so in general, we had universities in total were about a third of the submissions total. And obviously US heavy, but you can just see already on here, there were overseas universities affiliated teams that are amongst the winners as well.
Yeah, I noticed like the Delft from Netherlands.
And Marilena is on the call also.
Yeah,
so
Marilena,
yes.
exactly.
Shout out to Marilena and her Delft team, of course.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Marilena is not affiliated with the Delft team, but obviously it's these similar universities. So.
The universities are overrepresented in the winners, which if you look at some of the university names, that shouldn't be surprising. They put together really strong teams.
Yes, actually, university has a slight, I won't say unfair, but slight advantage in some cases because some of them has drone program and classes and drone teams already, and for some of the university with prior accumulated the senior students' knowledge and base and so on, thus provide meaningful resource. I gave a lecture at Auburn University.
True.
Yeah, that basically I preached the GoAERO to the university during the lecture, but also talked to their team, the Auburn team. The students seems to be quite energized.
And Johnny, you're right. That's definitely true in stage 1, where we're working on paper, right? And so universities think creatively. There's a lot of as we go into stage 2, prototype, stage 3, full scale, what we have discovered, at least through our work at GoFly and our
Right.
colleagues' work in other prizes, is that there is no one right way to be a team. And so universities can do well or they may not do well, and startups can do well or may they not, right? Everyone has the opportunity to do incredibly well in the competition in the building stages.
Yeah, and you know, when you get into stage 2 and 3, as you said, it required different expertise, different resources, different way of making it work right. Stage 3 could be challenging for some of the university team because now you're having the full scale or a full scale tackle all the technology and almost a pre-production product right there, and that could be challenging for some of the university teams at the stage 3. It will be interesting to see how it plays out. You know, I'm excited.
And talking a little bit about, like, I will not be surprised at all if the set of winners for stage 2 looks very different from the set of winners for stage 1, because it's a very different competition.
Right.
I think there are a lot of teams that did stage 1 where there's skepticism that what they propose can be made to work, that they can put that all away by just saying, look, I built something that works. And so those are obviously judged, you know, there's a rubric and everything, but judged subjectively by judges. And then the competition itself is also a totally different game, right? The fly-off is totally different because that is completely objective, and physics will be brutal to all teams, right?
Yes,
So
very much so.
Really very different competitions that are gonna play to different teams' strengths differently.
Yeah, looking at the group 1 winner pictures here, it's interesting. You know, each one you almost have questions about what they mean by this. How are they going to load up the transport, the mannequin, the person, and the performance and maneuverability. Each one actually is quite unique. I think that's the beauty about this whole competition. You know, it generated a lot of interesting ideas out there.
Totally. And one thing to keep in mind is that these are the graphics that teams to submit. They had to submit a publicly releasable one. And some teams are very open. They're like, yeah, we'll show a fully detailed graphic that shows all of our parts and everything that's going on. And other teams play things a little bit more cryptic. So they intentionally do something that's a little bit more cartoon for public release.
I see. Okay, that's interesting. Haven't thought about that. That makes sense. Anybody else has questions or suggestions how to energize even more team to participate?
Yeah, I have a question just for the phase 2 submission. You know, how much of that roughly is kind of paperwork, and how much of that is sort of like real hardware, you know, real photos? And can you just kind of maybe just give a quick overview on that?
Sure. So stage 2 is basically going to say, take all this stuff that we asked you to do for stage 1, and like basically that's going to be almost identical. To basically explain your system, what's your plan, what's your funding and budget, what are your risks, that sort of thing. And then in addition to that, there's an added 40% of content from a scoring rubric perspective, 40%, not necessarily from the amount of work perspective, obviously, that goes into the validation activities. And of that, it's going to be about half of how representative is what you've been building and working on and testing of the final thing you're going to take to the fly off. And the other half is like, and also, by the way, did that actually validate that it's going to do what you expect it to do, right? So if you build a full scale thing, but you only fly it in hover, then you kind of get a lot for the first half and not too much for the second half, right? But then some teams are going to say, oh, we're just going to focus on our subscale prototype, but build a full scale Iron Bird, including all of our propulsion. And so the scoring is kind of set up with the intent such that teams can focus on what is best for their project for addressing their biggest risks and what it makes sense for their development. Some teams have a very low risk kind of vehicle configuration. And so that's going to, you know, at a minimum, they need to show that they built something and flown something. but for them, they're going to be maybe focusing on other stuff at the stage 2 portion. So hopefully that answers the question. And I think a lot of teams start with their stage 1 submission and just edit and update that. So it won't be too much work to kind of fill that in again.
Okay, but I guess if we're a new team, we're basically kind of building the same kind of paperwork sort of bundle as went into phase 1, and then just additionally backing that up with the real world testing and so forth.
An
Okay.
18-page report and a few drawings, and then some information on like, hey, what's your schedule and budget and resources and things like that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Good to consider.
And a lot of the things to note in the submission page, a lot of those things are in there, not necessarily for the assessment, but to get teams thinking and give them hints about things that we expect them to think about, right? So if we ask you, hey, what is the gross weight of your vehicle? That's an explicit question, but it's kind of like we expect that to see that other places, like in your report, but it's kind of just parsing that out. Or like talk about your competitive strategy is another one where it's just kind of giving teams hints that, hey, we want you to think about this. There's a whole section on safety as well, where it's explicitly written in there that this section is not used for judging for prizes, but we're asking for it anyway because we want people at this stage to be thinking about like hazards and safety risks and things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then is that kind of phase 1 material that goes into the phase 2, is that kind of treated as confidential with respect to the sponsors, or, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So the only people who see that are judges. So like it's very, very firewalled off from the public or other teams, like that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I remember taking a quick look at this a while back, and yeah, it was a fairly in-depth analysis, you know, for the phase 1, and, you know, just kind of having some concern about, okay, well, do we want to really kind of reveal that much, you know, that could potentially be, you know, proprietary, but yeah,
held in confidence.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So,
Yeah, that's good to know.
well, as we said, teams keep their own intellectual property, and so too, all of our judges sign our confidentiality forms. So, you know, they're not allowed to talk about anything that's in there. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, and we also limit. So even though we have a pool, like for stage 1, we had a pool of 40 some judges. Not every judge had access to every submission either. So there's even kind of like limited exposure as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, and that sounds like a good a great approach to kind of encourage teams to participate and make submissions and so forth. So sounds good. But yeah, I understand what you mean too. Like not all of it is scored. It's just necessarily like just making sure that, you know, basic weight analysis is being done, power analysis, you know, just all the things that go into building a big vehicle. So.
Any other questions or thoughts?
Good evening from the Netherlands. So just good evening. So I was our team. I know that now they are struggling on sponsorship. So that's also the challenge of the stage 2.
Yeah. Well, yes, but your team did win some funds, so that will be nice. But yes, for all of our teams, it takes funding in order to make their certainly subscale, but definitely full scale. No doubt about that, right? So
yes,
I know that in the past for Delft, and I know for a number of our teams, they bring on team members whose function is to help them raise funds. And in a university setting, that's, you know, sometimes can be easier in terms of tapping into university funds and high net worth individuals for alum and all of that. But even in our corporate based teams, we also have a lot of resources for our teams in terms of expert lectures on funding, one-on-one mentorships, and then teams can certainly, and they always do, frankly, reach out to us and say, can we schedule a call with our GoAERO people to help us brainstorm ways that we can fundraise and introduce us and all of that. So so that's part of what we offer.
Yes, it's a learning process for them. So
Yeah.
I'm usually not somebody who encourages not thinking long term, but part of the structure of the competition is such that stage 2 for their prototyping, there's a minimum scale such that it's still possible to be very competitive in stage 2, having only spent money on hardware in the few $1,000s range to be able to build a Part 107, sub 25 kilo prototype in order to keep the hardware costs at least really manageable through stage 2. With the full acknowledgement that getting to a full-scale flyer and the logistics of getting to the fly-off is kind of a whole different beast from a financial investment perspective. But the structure of the competition is intentionally such that people can be competitive through stage 2 without having to spend a lot of money on hardware.
Thank you. Yeah.
That helps. I mean, it's I was a mentor for one of the first robotic competition. You're absolutely right. Many of the teams have to dedicate some of their time getting sponsorship in order to get to the point that has sufficient, not a whole lot, but sufficient. That seemed to be almost the scale of the phase 2 level of the funding requirement. Yeah, effort has to be put in. I mean, money doesn't just dump on our lap, unfortunately. So it would be nice, but it doesn't happen. So everybody is going to have a different way to get the resources, let me put it that way, get the resources needed to get to each stage. That would be, again, that would be an interesting dynamic to see how, I mean, I would love to see GoAERO puts more of the behind the scenes stories together.
Yeah. So actually we do. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So we have what we did last time. We have Team Tuesdays. Actually, it's not just Team Tuesdays because we have a lot of teams. So it's more than Tuesday. But we have write-ups that we're working on all of our teams. We're interviewing the teams constantly. And then we have a GoAERO blog where they're published. And then we help our teams get press as well, because that's one of the ways that it's easier to raise money if they have press, and then they can go to sponsors and say, look at the press that we've generated and all of that. So we have all of that backstory, all of those details. We work a lot with our teams to both do the write-ups for them and then help them publicize.
Perfect. Love it. Okay, guys, so with that, I think you all know how to get hold of Gwen and Sky. If not, let me know. I'll make sure that you can get get to them. Any suggestions, volunteering, be a mentor, or whatever. We need everybody's effort to make this work. And besides, as Ben said, I mean, we're here, the whole competition and the working group here. We're here to try to find ways to enable life-saving, helping people, saving lives. And this just fantastic effort. So congratulations, and really appreciate your guys' effort. And let's spread the word and get more people involved. This is definitely a worthwhile effort, no matter which way you cut it. Yeah. So with that, I'd like to thank our speakers again, and thank everybody for participating. I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, Johnny. Thanks all. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.